When House of the Dead Remake came out on the Nintendo Switch 1 and I made my video on it, I pretty much said, hey, I'm a really big fanboy of Sega, and I'm a really big fanboy of House of the Dead, so I probably am going to be more positive about this game than many other would be. And I was correct in that assumption. Yes, the game did have flaws, and quite a few of them, but I still had fun with it just because of that nostalgic feeling. I remember playing House of the Dead 1 in the arcade at Aladdin's Castle at the Crabtree Valley Mall in Raleigh, North Carolina. I remember getting the game for my Sega Saturn and absolutely loving it. House of the Dead 2, however, my nostalgia is not as strong. I did play it to death on the Dreamcast, and I played it to death on the Wii when the House of the Dead 2 and 3 collection came out on there. Excellent pickup. If you own a Wii, I suggest you buy that game. But my nostalgia is definitely a bit thinner for House of the Dead 2. I was still excited when House of the Dead 2 Remake was announced, though, because, hey, House of the Dead is cool, light guns are cool, and I was hopeful that the mistakes made in House of the Dead 1 Remake would be rectified in this sequel game. And well, it's an interesting bag. I have quite a few things I want to say about this game, and I'm just going to say them in this video. So hit that subscribe button if you're new, and let's talk about House of the Dead 2, some of the things I like about it, and some of the things not so much. So when you boot up House of the Dead 2 Remake, you have some different options and stuff to mess around with. You could do a new campaign, a boss rush mode, or a training mode. That's pretty cool, I guess. You're going to want to go into the options, though, and start messing around with stuff. There's a bunch of different control schemes. I want to use a single Joy-Con, though, so it's like a light gun. Now, these are my settings for a single Joy-Con because the default settings are disgusting. Like, it was unplayable at the default settings, just how sensitive everything was, and I don't know a single human who could do anything with that. There's no sort of graphics options or anything like that. Like I said, I am playing this on the Nintendo Switch 2. You can adjust some crosshair settings. Of course, someone else can use a single Joy-Con to jump in and jump out of co-op play. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. I like this little secret lab thing. I like little things like this where you can, you know, get some information on the game. It kind of gives it a little bit more of a larger feel than the standard game did. You could check out different character models. I don't like how the controls on the right-hand side are for if you are using like two Joy-Cons, because everything I'm doing here, it's just like completely ignoring me for some reason. And it just got to a point where I was just mashing buttons, and then I was able to finally check this out. So that was pretty cool. You know, I like seeing the character models and, you know, checking them out and seeing all of the sort of details on them. You know, they're the enemies. You see them all throughout the game, getting their names, getting their information. You could check out different weapons. You could check out the different cutscenes that you've seen and stuff like that. It's something small, but, you know, it's cool to me. I like this kind of stuff. I like the lore of the House of the Dead franchise, much like I like the lore of a Resident Evil franchise. Sure, it's a little bit paper thin with some of the earlier entries. I mean, those early Resident Evil games, the lore was absolutely crazy that people were making up, and I think House of the Dead is kind of similar to that. But this is cool. I like this. This is a nice addition. But of course, we have to talk about the game itself. And once we get into the game itself, you know, there's some things to talk about with this. So I'm using a single Joy-Con here, and you could see that like my aim is okay-ish, but it seems a little bit erratic. And obviously I don't have Tourette's or, you know, a nervous twitch or anything like that. Holding the single Joy-Con isn't exactly the most comfortable experience when trying to do a light gun like game. But once I dialed in the settings, like I said, to the settings that I showed you guys initially, it did feel a bit better. Now in this control scheme, you use the Z or the ZR trigger in order to shoot, or you can use B, and A is to reload, and then you kind of point the cursor where you want it to go. Some people I'm able to save, some people I'm not. It's not bad reflexes, it's just kind of adjusting to this. Let's get into problem one with this game, though. How are these voices like worse than they were in the original game? Like, the original game was like Resident Evil 1 quality, like very B movie, and some of the human voices are fine, but how is this little dude's voice like so bad? And one of the first problems I had with this game was playing with the single Joy-Con. This boss fight was way harder than it should have been because it was so hard to hit a smaller moving fast target with the erratic aiming. And like, I've dialed this into a point of where I feel it's good. You could see like the weird shimmering effect on our boss here. Like, it's kind of distracting. And this is kind of a problem that most of these games have had. Well, not really most. I guess you would say House of the Dead 1 and House of the Dead 2 now. Those games were very colorful games. Now, they weren't like cartoony style, but they had a lot of personality and they had a lot of color. With these remakes, it feels like we've gone back to the P filter era of, you know, the Xbox 360. And I don't mean P like 1080p. I mean P like urine, like piss. It's a piss filter. And I don't know, man. Like, when I look at like the Dreamcast version of this game or the Wii version of this game, I honestly think from a color perspective, it looks better. I think the enemy damage is done better in those games. You could blow more holes into the zombies, and you know, there's more damage effects that happen as you're playing it. Whereas in this game, a lot of things just feel very stagnant. And I do think like the textures themselves of the characters, of the environments, for the most part, do look nice. You know, they look clean and sharp. The frame rate is actually nice and smooth. You know, I didn't have any issues with that and whatnot. But it's just like the color choices. And obviously this is a design choice, but I feel like a more colorful design choice would have been a better choice for this game. It gives the game a bit more personality. It gives the game like a little bit more depth in terms of the visual style. This all looks very kind of generic-y. And I think that's what made House of the Dead kind of stand out, was that Sega-inspired color palette that they were honestly known for at this time. So I'm playing the game, though, and honestly, I'm not having a bad time. I picked up this game for $16.24. It is currently on sale on the Nintendo Switch eShop, and I'm not having a bad time, but the weird voice acting, the visual decision kind of turned me off. This guy's voice is worse than the Goldman's voice, is much worse than it was in the initial game. And then look at how dark this is. Like, I get it, it's a nighttime setting, but I feel like you still could have done some color usage. You could have done some better lighting and stuff like that. It honestly feels like a bit half-assed. And with House of the Dead 1, I could kind of let that slide because they're kind of, you know, getting their footing with this. This was the first game that they had done for Sega in terms of a remake. And so, you know, I'm playing this game and I'm like, could the controls be better? And I remembered to myself, I have something that I have purchased for a video that is coming up very soon where I go over a ton of Switch 2 accessories that I bought, because I have bought a lot, and I need to make a video on that so I can write them off on my taxes. But I picked up this little plastic gun thing, and I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe this will make the game control a little bit better. You just pop your Joy-Con in there, you hold it in your hand. Now, like I said, you do have to press the A button to reload, so you kind of got to grip it a little bit weird. But I noticed that it actually was better. Like, it wasn't like a huge difference of better, but it was better. It was better. I noticed my accuracy was better. My hand did not hurt as bad when I was playing the game and like having to contour my hand in a weird position, because yes, sometimes the cursor just goes crazy and it gets off center. But I noticed that with this gun, I could just kind of point it off screen and put it back on screen and immediately be back locked in. Like, it felt so much better. I'll have a link to this stupid piece of plastic gun thing in the description box down below. It will be an affiliate link, but I definitely think this made my experience a bit more enjoyable. I'm still not in love with the game or anything like that. I still think it has, you know, massive problems, but being able to control, like, look at this. I'm not doing that with a single Joy-Con. Like, these dudes are tearing me up. I'm getting hit multiple times, but I did feel a greater sense of control with this. I just wish, and I didn't save that person, but maybe I didn't want to save that person. I just wish a little more time and care went into this, and maybe a little bit of supervision from either Sega or fans of Sega. Like, what made House of the Dead 2 and by extension House of the Dead 1 so special, so unique? And I think it was, the tight controls, the B-movie acting, and the, color scheme that went into this. I don't think it's a horrible game. Playing it on the Switch 2, there is some fun to be had, especially if you're a fan of light gun games, which I totally am. Like, I managed to save this person. Why? I'm attributing it to the little plastic gun here, but it's definitely rough around the edges. It's a game that if it's on sale, I don't regret paying $16 for it. 10 I would have felt a little bit better, but it does lack a bit of polish. It does lack a bit of quality, and it lacks kind of that Sega feel that made the original games so special. But those are my thoughts on House of the Dead 2. There is, a decent amount of content. There's, different paths you could take. You could do an arcade mode or a new story mode as well, which, it's pretty much the same sort of stuff, but, it's all right. It's all right, but it could have been a lot better, I feel. So let me know what you think of this in the comments section down below. Like I've said a million times, I'm playing it on the Nintendo Switch 2. If the Switch 1 version has frame rate issues or something like that, I'm sorry, but I didn't play it on there, so I don't know what to tell you, pal. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Hit the bell as well. Let me know if you plan on picking up this game, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.